That has a lot of people wondering about a trade war coming, and how would the Chinese respond to that if they up the ante and respond in kind? Do the price of goods that come into this country from China start going up a lot, doubling, tripling, some would say? Would you pay for that to make the patriotic statement that they're gouging us and worse, helping North Korea? To the experts in this area, the coming collapse of China, best-selling author Gordon Chang, former, say, analyst specializing in North Korea, Sumi Terry. Sumi, the first thing that comes to mind is that Americans don't appreciate the impact this would have on them on buying everyday items if it escalates into a trade war. Do you think they would be willing to deal with that?
Well, I think Americans will be willing to deal with it if they understand the true nature of the North Korean threat. North Korea just tested 2 ICBMs. They're within a year away from achieving this capability to attack the United States homeland with a nuclear weapon. So I think if the Americans understand the security threat that's posed by North Korea, I think they will be able to make that.
Yeah, I think, Gordon, that North Korea using that angle is a better means of which to get Americans' support than talking vaguely about manipulated trade and all of that. And maybe that ultimately would be the president's approach with this. They could do more to stop North Korea, and they're not. We've got to stop them from helping a bad guy, and we will. And all this other stuff that they do will pile on.
Yeah, well, certainly. And, you know, it's not only countervailing duties, as the president talked about in that clip, and it's not only Section 301 tariffs. The other thing that the president can do with regard to China and North Korea generally is just start to enforce U.S. law, because we know that Chinese banks have been using the U.S. financial system to launder money for the North Koreans. And on June 29th, the president severed Bank of Dandong, a small fry institution, from the global banking system for doing this.
But they have other banks they can go to. Right?
Oh, yeah, and the point is, though, you've got Bank of China, which was named in a 2016 UN report for money laundering for North Korea, right, and other big Chinese institutions have been doing this. You know, once the president unplugs a big Chinese bank, that's all he needs to do, because then Xi Jinping, the Chinese ruler, realizes he's got to actually come to the party on trade, North Korea, South China Sea, you name it, because putting Chinese banks into the tank, that's the end of the Chinese economy.
You'd have to target all the Chinese banks, right?
Well, I'm not sure about all the Chinese banks. I think it's a big start to start with some, the biggest ones.
I think the Chinese always think that we're not going to do it.
Yes, I think all the previous U.S. administrations tried to get China to do more to rein in North Korea.
And they never do.
But they never do, because they don't want to strain a relationship between Washington and Beijing. But I think the time is now.
Do you think, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt here, just for argument's sake, the Chinese can't control the North Koreans? This guy's a nutcase and they can't rein him in?
Well, they can rein him in. First of all, you know, more than 90% of North Korea's two-way trade is with China, 92% last year. China supplies more than 90% of North Korea's crude oil, much of it on concessionary terms. You go through the list of it. But the most important thing that China supplies to the North Korean regime is confidence. Confidence that they're safe from the international community. If China were to signal that they were withdrawing support, you would see the people around Kim Jong-un start to scatter, and they would no longer support the weapons programs in all probability, largely because they know that they would be at risk. So that's what China supplies. So yes, they can control North Korea. They've been supplying North Korea with all sorts of ballistic missile technology, equipment, all the rest of it. This is really a very dirty relationship.
Wouldn't it take toppling Kim Jong-un, though? I know the Secretary of State Tillerson said that's not our goal, but isn't it our private wish that the cooler heads in North Korea realize this guy is sending us in a bad direction?
Of course, somehow it's like taboo to talk about regime change, but under this Kim leadership, nothing's going to change. He's not going to give up nuclear weapons. We need different leadership. Now, change does not mean decapitation necessarily or military action. We could do more to help people of North Korea bring about.
And how do we know
change.
We don't replace a nut with a bigger nut, right?
Well, I think it's a start to get rid of this particular family.
There are no bigger nuts in Pyongyang than Kim Jong-un. But yeah, I think what would happen, you would see a more collective leadership form, because that's what China has, and that's what they want for North Korea. So you'd have a lot of generals. You can actually deal with generals. You may not be able to deal with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah. All right, guys, thank you both very, very much.